Praveen, can you please open your camera? Praveen?
I'm changing my lights actually, that's it.
Yeah, actually, we are live now. And so, hello everyone. I hope you all are doing fantastic. A very warm welcome to the Expert Edge Masterclass, proudly brought to you by Shine.com. We are so excited to have you with us today as we dive into our today's topic, which is microservice architecture with Spring Boot and Kubernetes. Ever wonder how companies like Spotify, Airbnb, Netflix, Amazon, and PayPal manage millions of users seamlessly? The secret is microservice. In fact, over 85% of businesses are using microservice to build faster, more flexible application. In this session, we'll break it down how Spring Boot and Kubernetes works together to help you build apps that are scalable, efficient, and ready for the cloud. Whether you are new to microservice or looking to sharpen your skills, you are in the right place. But before we started, let me quickly introduce myself. I am Preeti Rangwal, your host, and now it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our expert speaker for today, Mr. Sri Praveen. Sri Praveen is a seasoned software developer with a strong background in building scalable and high performing applications. He specialized in Java, Angular, React.js, and MySQL, developing robust solution for web development and multi-threaded application. With expertise in front-end and back-end development, he leveraged modern web technologies like Angular and React to create seamless user experience. He has also contributed to various projects using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. Beyond coding, he is skilled in technical analysis and project management, assisting clients in delivering successful projects. Having worked in on-site and offshore outsourced development, he brings valuable insight into real-world software engineering challenges. Today, he is here to share his expertise on microservice architecture with Spring Boot and Kubernetes. So stay engaged, ask questions, and take full advantage of this opportunity to learn from a seasoned expert. Without further delay, let's welcome Mr. Sri Praveen to lead today's session. Over to you, Praveen.
Yes, yeah. Thanks for good introduction, Preeti. So it's happy. So I think I can start.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I hope everyone can able to see my screen. And as we all know, today we are going to see about Spring Boot microservices. So initially, I just give an introduction of how the Spring Boot basic annotations. Then I will tell you how we can able to use these concepts in order to create a microservice application. From there, we can go ahead for how to deploy this application using our Docker as well as Kubernetes actually here. Okay. And I think she already she mentioned, in case if you have any doubts, any queries, I think you can use chat. I hope so. And you cannot see your screen. One second.
I think they are facing any kind of network issue.
Yeah. Is it
Because
my
it's
screen is
visible.
sharing, right? Yeah. Okay. Shall I continue, Preeti, right? I think one person is mentioned that
Yes,
he has
yes.
done. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay. So guys, first we will go with the Spring Boot architecture. So okay. So as you can see here, this is just an example of how the Spring Boot is working actually here, which means in terms of microservices architecture. Oh, let me check. Okay. So as you can see here, I have an application with API gateway. One second, let me open that website. Yeah. So here you can see the clients, which means from where we are getting the request, right? So directly it goes to the API gateway. So generally in our Spring Boot application or any other server-side application, what will happen? It goes to the directly it goes to the application, which means in normal application, we can say. So what are the diagram that you are seeing here? This is how that normally how Spring Boot will get the request, maybe any other server-side application. So you can see my client, which is any browser or mobile devices. From here it goes to the controller to the service layer and model, all these things. This is the basics of Spring Boot application. This would be good for small based companies, as well as for small applications. This architecture will be fine. But when it comes to this kind of bigger architecture, then we need this type of applications. Okay, the real-time example is, just consider that we are using Amazon, Flipkart, and all other bigger websites. So on particular day, they need some of the pages has to be accessed by the many users. For example, you can see there is a product page which is in Amazon, can be utilized more than that normally what they are getting traffic. So on the particular day, they want to leverage the application. So what they will do, they will, if they are using Microsoft application, only that particular product search module will be deployed in a multiple servers, which can be used for multiple requests. Okay, so this is how the microservice architecture would be useful. So I hope you guys understood. So which means if one particular module you want to develop as a entire application, that can be possible, but in the previous older way of architecture, that cannot be possible. So everything has to be included in the one file, but in the microservices, each module will be considered as application. If you want, still you can go with the one application, but the main advantage of microservices is each application or each module will be considered as a one application. For example, just consider this small example actually. So you will have a, generally in our web application, we used to have a login module, and then we can have a search module. Search means to product search or something. Consider this is the architecture for e-commerce application. Then we used to have checkout page, then we used to have order page, then order history. Okay, maybe we can say order and history. This is just an example I'm just giving actually. Okay, of course there is a lot of other modules also there, merchant module, buyer module, and seller module. This is just an example. Now consider this, only the search module will have a too many requests from the users, because login will be only once or depends on the users. Checkout also will be happen only for the final users, and order and history also needed only for the users who ordered the product. But when it comes to search, it can be accessed from the public itself, even though the user who does not want to order the product, they want to see the website, correct? So what we can do for the search module alone, we have two different microservices, or we can say two deployments. In the sense, two physical servers actually. We can say two servers. So when it comes to login, we can have a same server. Checkout also we can have a one server. Order and history also we can have one server. But for the search alone, we have two servers. So this is how the microservices will work. So in that case, what we can do, we can put our application into two different servers, which helps us to process the request very fast. For example, in case if you are having only one server which can process up to 100 requests, just an example I'm just giving, 100 requests per minute. No, it's just an example, this is not the real-time scenario. Okay, so if I'm having only one server which process 100 requests per minute, then if I'm having two servers, then what will happen, I can process 200 requests per minute actually here. So the users will be very they will not to wait in order to see the request and all these things. This is the reason we need this microservices architecture. Only that particular module I can able to leverage, and I can able to deploy in a multiple places. The same thing goes for checkout also. Maybe for some days like Republic Day sale or some other festival sale, if they want to increase this checkout page, then on that particular day alone they may put like 3 servers. That is also possible in AWS and other cloud servers also, which means we can tell like on the day alone I need a 3 servers to deploy my application. Otherwise, we can also write the code that on the day we need to deploy this one in multiple servers. So on the day, what will happen? Whenever the request comes, it will be shared to all the 3 servers. So once maybe after 3 days you don't need, means then you can limit this 3 into 1 actually here. This is also possible. So this is the main advantage by using the microservices. Now you may have a question like, why can't we do this with the the normal older way of architecture? So in this architecture, the entire application has to be deployed in the entire server. So for example, if I am expecting this application to multiple servers, then our entire module, all these things will be deployed in a multiple servers, which is not necessary. So this is a reason we are having a microservice architecture, that each module will be splitted in a separate application with its own port number. It will be executed. Okay, so this is the basis of our so this is the basics of our which is the Spring Boot microservices concepts. Okay, so now maybe little bit history in terms of Spring Boot microservices. Who developed the library? So the answer is Netflix. So whenever you are seeing any library regarding the microservices, you could find that most of the the packages are coming from the Netflix actually here. So one second. Yeah, so you can see here in my sample application which you are seeing in my screen, in the import package you can see everywhere the Netflix will come. So what it means is the package which is developed for Spring Boot with microservices all are developed by the Netflix actually, which is open source. It's not commercial, by the way, so anyone can able to download it and we can able to use it. So there is no commercial. Still Netflix keep it as commercial as it can be developed in a further scenario. So this would be useful in terms of development. So whatever the microservices that we are working, it is specifically developed from Netflix only actually here. Okay, fine. So I hope you guys are having good idea about the microservices. And one more thing, now you may have a doubt like how many databases are we going to have for these applications? Okay, because this is generally we used to have, right? As we are having a microservices, do we need to create a multiple databases? Again, this is we cannot have one solution. This is depends on the application. In some applications, they will keep only one database for all the modules. Okay, for example, even though it is in a multiple servers, still they will use one database as a centralized database, and they will get the data from database. In some other applications, they may go for multiple databases also. This is also possible. So it's depends on the application and what type of data that we are going to store and how are we going to access the data. So this is how we have to define. So if you want to have each microservices, you want to keep your database, that is also fine. Otherwise you want to keep one single database, that is also fine, but it depends on the application. For example, if your order and history checkout, all this, each module's data is more than crore or 10 lakh or something, then of course we can have a separate database for each module. In case if your handling the data is very low and only read request is most for your database means, then we can keep only one database which can be used for across the applications. Okay, so this is not the only one solution that we have to use only multiple databases or multiple or each only one. It depends on the application architecture, that how are we going to use these concepts actually here. Okay, so I hope you guys are understood this scenario. So now let's see how we can able to create these microservices. Okay, so before that, everyone knows how to create a Spring Boot application. So Spring Boot application can be created from the Spring Initializer. So you can just mention, okay, you can go to the Spring Initializer, so where we can able to create our normal Spring Boot application. So I hope as you guys, as we are learning microservices now, I don't have time to explain this basics. So here you need to mention the project build type as well as the language which you are going to learn, which you are going to use, of course, which is a Java or Groovy or Kotlin. Okay, I think one person is asking, if we have one database for all modules, then how we are going to add data. For example, UI, I am adding data from database. I am also adding data. Okay, I couldn't understand the last part. The first part I understood. You are asking like, for UI, I am adding data. From database also, I am adding data. How can we handle this? Maybe can you just mention that question clearly, the second point? Okay, so back to this concept. So as you can see here, first we need to create this application, Spring Boot application. So whatever the name that you want, you can provide. Here I will mention like SP, and you can mention Spring Boot app, and other things you can just mention everything actually here. Okay, so fine. So now click on add dependencies. Okay, so these dependencies are very important in terms of running the Spring Boot application. So as the normal Spring Boot application, you don't need basic things, but whenever we are working with a microservices, okay, this is just a registry repository. So by clicking generate, immediately the application will be generated. Okay, for example, in case if you want to connect to the database, of course we need to add the JPA, and if you want to use Lombard, then of course you can just mention Lombard also. This is these are all the basic differences that we used to add in our application. Okay, but when it comes to this Spring Boot microservices, we need to create a 3 different applications. Okay, which means, as we discussed once again, so as we discussed this diagram, um, microservices, you might know this, like we can deploy in a multiple servers, but this is not the one. We have still some more layers also there. As you can see here, we have a client. This is called API gateway. This is called our applications. Okay, so leave about this circuit breaker and all these things. So API gateway is nothing but this is the entry point for our Spring Boot application. So as I told you, we have a multiple applications runs on the different server. So if UI wants to communicate to the login, or if UI wants to communicate to the search module, checkout module, order history module, each will be running on the different port number, correct? So UI cannot able to remember all these ports, and the UI developers needs to mention the port number each and every time whenever there is a change happens. So what we can do, instead of this port number changing and all these things, we can just have an API gateway. Okay, this API gateway will not have any business module or anything. It just knows where to point the URL. This is kind of get for your application, which has only the mapping routing details. Okay, I think if you work with the React or Angular, we may have a file called app.routing file or app.routes file will be there, right? It is also the same API gateway file, which knows only where to point the request. That's it. Apart from this, it will not have anything actually here. So we should not keep any business logic or something, but this API gateway, we can use it for authorization. So this API gateway, for example, if I want to connect to the login module, what I need to do, I need to hit the API gateway. Maybe just consider your API gateway running on the port number 8084, something like that. Okay, so your API gateway runs on 8084. So this is your major entry point for your application. Okay, understood, right? So this 8084 is the major entry point for your application. You cannot directly hit the login module or search module, checkout module from the client. Understand, right? So as you can see here, this is login module. Okay, this is my search module, this is my checkout module. So from the client, which means browser, if I want to directly hit to this one, this cannot be possible. Only via API gateway I can able to hit this application. So this API gateway only knows which application is hosted in the which server. So in this API gateway, I need to configure in which port number my login is running, in which port number in search is running, in which port number my checkout is running, and in which port number my order and history is also running actually. This we need to mention here. For example, just consider my login is running on 8081 port number. Okay, so the second module is running on the port number 8082. Of course, we all know we cannot run the same application in the same port number. So of course, if you're having a different one, I have to run in a different port number. Other applications also running 8083, 8084 respectively. So all these 4 applications running on the different each port number. So this port number, okay, so this port number has to be configured to my API gateway, which is running on the 8085. Okay. So now what will happen? Whenever any request comes to my application, it will come to this localhost 8085 only. Okay. In the API gateway, I mentioned if anything related to login, pointing to the 8081. Okay. That we need to mention that I will tell you how to configure and all these things. And if anything related to search, then pointing to the 8082. If anything related to the checkout, pointing to the 8083. Anything related to 8080, order history, pointing to the 8084. But all the requests to my application will come to 8085 only. Okay, so in the UI, I don't need to provide 8081, 8082, 3 or 4. In the UI, I need to provide only 8085. In Angular or React, if you want to hit your API, you need to give only localhost 8085. That's it. You don't need to give anything each port number. For example, localhost colon 8085/login. Okay, so in 8085 search and localhost 8085 slash checkout. Okay, so you can see this is the request which is coming from my browser actually here. Okay, so this L is small, by the way, I hope you people know. So now you may have a question like, all the requests are pointing to the same server, but how this can be microservices? This is the reason we need the API gateway. I hope this you might know the answer. So this is the reason we have a API gateway. This API gateway will help you to forwarding the request to the appropriate server. Okay, so from the client it is only 8085, it looks like same server, but internally we are forwarding this request to the child server, we could say, as you for your understanding. So we are just forwarding or moving the request to this server. Search means automatically this API gateway will move this one, and checkout means it goes to the this one actually here. So this is how this microservices will work in our application. So even though we are having a multiple servers running, still we have our API gateway which is responsible for pointing the request to the each and every applications actually here. Okay, so now we are going to see how to create a API gateway in Spring Boot application, how to create a Spring Boot applications also. Okay, so these two things we are going to learn now. And as I told you, this API gateway should not contain any mapping in terms of get mapping or post mapping. It has only the basic configuration of mapping. That's it. Apart from this, it should not contain anything, because in case if your application contains anything business logic or something, then it is not a proper microservice architecture. API gateway is also Spring Boot application. Okay, so in terms of pure technical, I could say all these things are Spring Boot applications only. But the dependency which we are adding to that application, accordingly it will have a different name. This is kind of API gateway, this is kind of login module, search module, and product module kind of thing actually here. Okay, so now as I told you, each application will have its own dependency. For example, when it comes to the API gateway, of course it has its own dependencies also. All these things I will tell you what are the differences that you need to for API gateway, and you need this one, all these things actually here. Okay, so this is how you need to define your Spring Boot architecture. And when it comes to this other layer, it's all same only. For example, this databases and message brokers and all these things. And as you can see here, this is service registry, circuit breaker, and all these things we will see one by one actually here. Okay, so first we will see the first two things, which is API gateway as well as the Spring Boot applications. Okay, so first we need to create a Spring Boot application. The way how we are creating the normally Spring Boot application, it is also the same only, but the only thing is we need to add one more dependency. Okay, okay, so this is one second. Yeah, so this is a simple Spring Boot application which I have created by using the same initializer. I will tell you what is the differences that I have added in order to create a client application. Okay, it's very important that you should know the basic naming conventions. I am telling that client applications. So client application is nothing but this one. Okay, so for this one we have to add some dependencies in order to make this application as a client one, then only it will work like a client actually here. Okay, so what I need to do, I need to mention it's all same only, the way JPA dependencies and Lombard dependencies, all these things you can mention. There is no any different, as you can see here, the same starter web and this Flux, all these things. If you want Flux, I'm adding this is specifically for to handle the UI things. If you don't want, you can reject it actually here. Okay, so now here you can see this dependency is right. This is the dependency which is related for microservices. You can see that Netflix Eureka client. As I told you, these microservices are developed by Netflix. So everywhere they mentioned clearly that Netflix is the they are the owning this one, but still it is commercial to use. Actually, there is no any charge for this one. So I need to mention this dependency in our Spring Boot application while creating the application. If you want to, I will show you this one. You can just go into the Spring initializer. This initializer. Okay, so normally the way how you are, you need to already. So in the add dependencies, you can just mention Eureka client. It's not coming. This one. So this Eureka client, Eureka discovery client, you need to add it in your client application. Okay, it's very important that how you are managing the dependencies. Sorry. So if you are keeping your both server as well as client in the same dependencies, of course you will get an error. Okay, so it's very important that you are keeping this client dependency only for client applications. So client application means only this scenario. Okay, so whatever the client application that you want to create, for that application alone you should add this dependency, otherwise it is not necessary. And if you are adding, then it will create some unnecessary errors also, a warning it will come. So better you have to add this dependency properly to your client applications. Okay, so apart from this, you can add other dependencies also, lombard, jpa, rest repository, all these things you have to add in order to process a request. So now as you can see here, I have added other dependencies also, which is this rest, as well as I think JPA I didn't add, maybe JPA I didn't have any database connections, that is also fine. Okay, the circuit breaker, I will tell you the reason after that. First you will go through the basics actually here. And as usual, Spring Boot starter Tomcat I have used. If you want, you can use it, otherwise you can ignore it actually here. Okay, so this is the basic setup of this application. But now let me go to the API gateway. Like this, you can create a n number of applications. Okay, I create only one application, right? You can create a n number of applications, but make sure that you are running in the different port number. Okay, because as I told you, we have to run these applications in the different port number. So I am telling login application has to be run in the 8081, and the search application will be in the 8082, something like that. Okay, so in the same way how you are creating this login, you can do the same thing for other things also, but only difference is we need to mention port number. You guys know where to mention the port number for Spring Boot application. In application property file, we need to mention the server.port. So this will help you to where you want to run the application. Okay, I told you this service one, which is my application, has to be run on the port number 8081, and I just mentioned the name of my application, which is service one. Okay, this is just for your understanding. Moreover, whenever you are seeing in the microservices dashboard, you can easily understand this is service one. Okay, so this is the two basic configuration that I need to mention, that my application is running on the port number 8080, as well as my application name is service one actually here. Okay, so these are all the things which is for microservices server application. Okay, this is kind of one more concept. To manage the microservices, we have one concept called server dashboard. Okay, so the server dashboard will help you to status of the application, to monitor the application. So I am giving these details to connect the client to the server application. Okay, this is not anything related with the API gateway. API gateway is entirely different. So this is the configuration which you are saying here. You may get some doubt here. So the reason behind this configuration is to connect to the Spring Boot dashboard application, or in proper technical name we can say microservices server application. Okay, so here I need to mention all these things, some basic configurations. This is the URL of my server application. Okay, so my server is running on the port number 8761, and Eureka is the default endpoint that we need to mention, and it is asking where to find it. Is in the localhost actually here. Okay, so this is things, this is how you need to design the microservices, the base step. And internally you can keep the same thing. Generally in our Spring Boot application, we used to have a model, service, controller, dependency injection, entity, creating the entity class, DAO, request response, everything will be same only. Okay, so that you can create here, but this is very simplest application, so I didn't create much. But whatever the way architecture that we are having, everything can be included here as well. Okay, so now go into this main application. You can see here I am just having a one controller, which is this service one. I will tell you what is the meaning of this one, because this is very important place here. Generally in our small applications we may not use this kind of mapping, but here it is very important. I will tell you the reason later actually. Okay, just note it down actually here. Now coming to this one, you all know all these things, get mapping, and here I think this, what this get mapping is doing is this will connect to the another microservices, and this is what this will do. This get mapping, it connects to the from different API. You can see here this is kind of one different server. From here I am just getting the data. Okay, fine. So now what are we going to do is we are going to run the application, but now if I run the application it will throw the error. Let me stop the application now. Okay, so generally how we are running our application, by clicking on the, what is this? Okay, generally how we are running the application, go to the main class, or you can just, if you have configured the run configuration, automatically by clicking the symbol it will run actually here. Okay, so you can see one log which is connecting to my discovery server, okay, which is, I told you the server concept. So I am running this already on, let me stop that server. I will tell you how to create a server and all. Okay, don't get confused actually here. Okay, so now as you can see here, again I will stop the application. Now if I run the application, yeah, it's throwing the error, right? Let me show you this thing. Okay, so as we have discussed, now I created a simple client application which has to be connected to the server. So now my server is not running, I have only one application currently running in my system. So click on the run. You can see here my client is running, but it is throwing some error actually. So what is the error is, I told you in the application property file to my application to find the server on the port number 8761, but as of now we didn't create any server application, so it's giving the error as it cannot able to find my server. Okay, so you guys understood it. So my application is running, but it wants to connect to the server which is not available in my system. So only I am having this issue. Okay, it's telling every time it wants to connect again and again, but it's telling like it cannot able to identify my server. Okay, this is first step. Let me close this application, let me kill the application, and microservices stop. Okay, so here you can define whatever the model view controller and all these things, and you need to mention the server applications also. Now let's see how to create a server application. Okay, so this is just an one Spring Boot application that I'm having here. In case if you want to run multiple applications, that is also fine with the different port number. But one thing is, when you want to run multiple applications, you have to mention this port number, different port number, as well as this name is also should be different actually here. Okay, so now let's go for the creating the server side application. Okay, so server application, not server side, actually server application. So what is the configuration? Again, that is very simple actually here. So server application, again, it will not have contain any business logic. You need to mention just configuration. If you run the application, automatically your client will connect to the server. You don't need to do anything. Once you run the server along with your client which is running on the different port number, your server running on the different port number, automatically it connects. Only thing is you need to mention the port number in application property file. You don't need to do any connection, or you don't need to give any manual intervention in order to connect. So once you mention the port number, you need to run parallelly, and once it runs, automatically it gets connected. So let's see how to create a server application. Okay, and one more thing, still our API gateway concept is pending. Okay, so don't get confused. We need to create a API gateway, we need to create a server dashboard, we need to create a client applications. Okay, the client application is the major part of our application. So server application as well as API gateway is like a to managing our concepts, URLs we can say. Now go to our browser in order to create a server side application. Okay, so the same Spring initializer only. Here we need to mention the server side architecture. Once again, guys. Okay, fine. So as we all know, in terms of server side, first we should not keep the client, because client is for client side application. As we are developing the server side, we need to remove this one, and we should have a different package and different name also for our understanding. And you know what is the base configuration according to your system, you can able to create it. Okay, so now let's go for server side application. Let me tell you. Okay, So let me take the dependency first, because in terms of logic, it's not having much logic actually here. So yes, you can see you need to mention the Eureka server. So in the client, you need to mention Eureka client. In the server, you need to mention Eureka server. That's it. Apart from this, nothing actually. And one more thing here, you don't need to connect with any database or any business logic, because this is not proper way of architecture. So we should keep only the server configuration, and you can see no more files is needed. Only one main application, and you need to add this annotation, which is enable Eureka server. If it is not available, this annotation we have to add, and go to the application property file. Here you need to mention your server configuration. It is very important that you should mention the configuration, otherwise your server will not run properly. Okay, so here you need to mention that I am telling register with Eureka. It's not necessary. This is also not necessary, because this has to be true only for the client side application, not for the server. And I am telling my server has to be run on the 8761. Okay, so you people know, generally in Spring Boot application, if you want to change the port number, we need to mention server.port. So the server.port, I am mentioning this application has to run on port number 8761. It's all your wish, you can run on anywhere, but I'm just mentioning 8761 actually here. Okay, so this is my Spring Boot server microservices server port number. Okay, don't get confused with this thing with actual server port number. Okay, the server which I am mentioning is microservices server. This server port I am mentioning is the application in which port number it has to execute. Okay, so I hope now you guys are having basic idea about how the server is working. And as you can see here, there is no much do anything, only totally 4 things in terms of creating the server. You need to copy paste the dependency which is called Eureka server, and that too can be added in the application creation. Here you can just click on dependency, you can just mention server you can see Eureka server, right? So if you type server, you can have other servers also, but the last one is, you can see Eureka server. This Eureka server, you can just click on it, immediately this will be added. Okay, so in your project, as it is server side application, you should add the server. Should not add the client side dependency, which we are seeing previously, right? That is for only client side dependency, which is other client applications. This is kind of server side microservices server applications actually here. Okay, so once you add, you have to tell which port number it has to run. I mentioned 8761, and all other things I am mentioning properly like this actually here. Okay, so now first I need to run the application. In order to run, it is the same procedure. Go to the main application, you need to execute it, or in case if you configure your application properly in your run configuration, that is also fine. So click on this one. As you can see here, now my server side application is running on the port number 8761 properly without any issues actually here. Okay, so let me clear this application. Now it's working fine without any issues. My server is running. As I told you, once my server is running, I need to connect my client applications also. Okay, it is running parallelly in different port number. So let it be. Now I need to open another IntelliJ, because you need to run 2 applications simultaneously. So in case if you are working with a very low memory system, of course your system will hang. So it's very important that you should use good system in order to do this one. In case if you are using very 4 GB RAM bundle, of course I hope no one will have. I'm just telling. Okay, so now go to this. This is my client application. Okay, you can see the annotation in my server application. I have a class which is this Eureka server, and in my client application I have annotation called Eureka client. This is very important, because then only your Spring Boot will understand this is for server side application, this is for client side application. Okay, so now click on I think already my client is connected. One second guys, let me show you. So now my client is not running. I shut down this client application. Now if I run the application, you can see the log that, yeah, So you can see my application is also running on the port number 8081. Along with that, you can find my my application is running on the 8083. I think this is the client side application, and it's connected to the server also. What is this? Yeah, sorry, this application is running on the 8083 and it's connecting to my, oh sorry, I ran the different application. Okay, this is my client side application. Okay, yeah. So this is my client side application which we discussed previously. I told you this is the port number, and here I mentioned to where it has to connect to the server. So I just mentioned localhost 8080 where my server side application is running, and Eureka. Now let me run the application. Yes. You can see my application is running fine, and along with that, you can find my application is connected to my server. I think it would be added in the log, but why it's not writing. You can see that my application is running on, its status is up, means the application is running and everything is working fine. Yeah, I am showing one scenario. This is my client side application which is in the right side, and this is my left side, my server side application. Okay, now I am purposefully shut down the server side application. Yeah, immediately you can see the error here. Can you see the error in the log? Yeah, can you see the error? Because always this client and server has to be connected together in order to serve the properly. In case if the server is not working, then of course client will throw the error. Okay, if client is not working, that is not the issue, because server will always run and it will try to connect to the another clients as well. But when it comes to this server is shut down, our client applications cannot able to communicate, so it is throwing the error actually here. Can you see the error? So now my application wants to connect to the server, it's not available, so it is throwing the error again and again. You understood it? If I run my server application now, we will get the successful message. Just wait for some time, because it tries to connect again and again. Yeah, you can see here now my client application is connected to my server, and immediately as soon as it's connected, you can see the log is coming in the server side also. It is telling that service 1 application is connected from the port number 8080. This is the log of server side, this is the log of my client application is try to connect this one, and my server is telling one guy is connected to our server actually here. Okay, it's clearly telling my service 1 from the port number 8080, which is the server side. This is my client side actually here. Yeah, excuse me. Fine. So this is how you need to set up the application. In case if you want to create another application, still you can able to possible, but server application keep it only once, and the client application you can create a number of applications, and you can connect to the this server side application. Okay, so whatever the application that you are connecting to the server, it will be registered actually here. That's it. Okay, so this is my client as well as server, and I told you server side server application, whatever we are keeping for the microservices, it will not do anything. It's just for to monitor the applications. Okay, I think there is a URL. 1 second, let me check to how to find the things. Localhost. Yeah, so localhost 8761 where my server is running, which is microservices. You can see this is the dashboard of my entire microservices. So using this dashboard, I could see how many clients are connected to my Eureka server, as you can see here, and you can see what is the status, whether it is running or not, and how many memory is available. All these things you can see. Total CPUs are available, memory usage, and what is the things, all these things you can able to see, and this is my current IP address. Okay, so this can be achieved only by the Eureka server, otherwise this you cannot able to see it. Okay, and still I am telling our API gateway is still pending, that we didn't see, still that portion is pending actually here. Okay, so now in case let me check, do I have any, as you can see here I have only one service application, which is client application, right? I will try to run one more applications also, I think I have in my system. So now as you can see here, I am running two applications, one client, one server. I am running one more client which can be connected to the server. So what I'm going to do, file, open, let me check. Yeah, this is my another application, and let me open trust new window. It's very important that I should use new window, because current window means it will kill the current application and creates new one. So I'm creating a new window. Yeah, it's running, and you can see the configuration properly here. It should not conflict with the existing application. You guys understood, right? Because if your existing application have conflict with this one, your application will not run. So it's very important that you should run properly your existing application. Okay, so what I am telling is this is my application name. You can see that other application, one second, this is my existing application. I will just open the property for your understanding. Okay, so so this is my own application, this is my another application. Oh my god. Okay, so here the above one you can see service one, which is first client application. This is my service 2, and this application is running on the 8080, this application is running on the 8081. If I am running both this in the same port, of course it will not run, as you people know, and remaining everything same configuration only. This is same, so same true, and where it has to connect host name, and here also it is the same. So this client also, this configuration will not be changed, because this both the clients is going to connect to the same server, so there is no different configuration. Now if I run the application, as soon as it started, you can see in the dashboard this entry will be refreshed. Let's see, now I am not running the second client application. So here let me run my application. I think it is asking me to set up the SDK. One second. Okay, so this is my new system, so it didn't set up properly. Okay, now let me run the application. I think, yeah, it's connected. As you can see here, whenever it's as soon as it started, it's connect to my server. You can see 8081, because 8080 is my previous client 1, this is client 2. Now go to the dashboard, which is the server dashboard. If I refresh it, you can find two applications are running in my system. Okay, one is 8081, another one is 8080. So first application name is service 1, second application name is service 2. Okay, it's all your wish how you want to define the name. Okay, there is no any proper standard. It's all your wish actually here. Okay, so now my two services are running. Go to the application. So totally 3 applications are running. One client, another client, I think so, another this is gateway. Where is another guy? Once again. Yeah, okay, so totally 3 applications are running. So this is the first step. Now what is the next one? As we discussed, API gateway, because as of now our applications are running, but how to get the output, how to see the response, this is where our API gateway will come into the picture. Okay, now only we are going to create a API gateway. So again, that is also very simple. You need to just add the dependency. Only thing is you need to mention in which port number your application is running. That is the only one scenario. Okay, so now go to your Spring Initializer. I'll put it here. Okay, here I show you how to create a server-side application, how to create a client-side application. But now we are going to see how to create a API gateway. Okay, so let me show you the differences. Okay, so here in this place, can you see this gateway is also one of the dependencies, and this application will be behave like a client also. So these two dependencies you need to add in order to make this application as a gateway application. Okay, so once it is created, I think the same configuration you need to mention. So what is the name of your application, and the same configuration, and in which port number you want to run. So I am telling this application has to run on port number 8083. So this is the entry point for my entire application. Okay, and along with that some more configurations also available. Let's see. But now go to browser, here add dependencies. As we are creating the API gateway is also our client side. So first you need to add a client dependency, discovery client, and you need to mention API gateway. Can you see it is mentioned as Spring Cloud routing? Clearly it is mentioned. As I told you, this is kind of routing file. It has only the routing configuration. So we should mention we should use this gateway configuration only for routing actually here. Okay, so now add this dependency. So these two dependencies are essential in order to create a proper gateway application actually here. Okay, so now go to this generate. Our application will be generated, and once you are opening with the IntelliJ, you can see this normally how you are working with the normal Spring Boot client application, the same thing. Here you need to mention the client. It's very important that client annotation has to be added. Now go to the application property file. Here it is the same. I'm mentioning my gateway is the name, and in which port number it has to execute, and in which how it can connect to the server. So all these things I mentioned, which we discussed previously with the other applications also. This line would be same for previous applications. Only two differences: the name of the file as well as port number of the file. Okay, so this is how our basic architecture will work. But now I told you where is the routing. So this is where we are seeing the routing. Yeah. Okay, so what is the configuration here? Okay, so again I will tell you one more scenario here. The configuration which I have created is just a application level property configuration. There is a Java level configurations also available. There is a YAML based configurations also available. So it's all your wish how you want to write the configuration. Okay, this is very simplistic way. I feel like if you want to create a YAML level, that is also fine. If you want to create a Java level, that is also fine. It is both are available in the Spring Boot application. Here I am using that application property file. So here what I am doing is I just mention Spring Cloud Gateway Routes ID service 1, which is my application name, as well as this is my port number where this application runs. It's very important that you are giving the port number 8080 where my application is running, which is the service 1 is running. Okay, if any one of the things are missing, immediately you will get error during the connection. Okay, and I am telling if any URL, if my URL contains service 1, then pointing to this port. This is what the main thing I am telling. If any URL, if my URL, the request URL coming to the API gateway contains this service 1, then pointing to the server, or we can say forward the request to the server. The same scenario, go to this place. If any URL has this service true, then forward the request to the 8081. Okay, but now you may have a question like, can't we directly hit this 8080 from client side? No, it cannot be, because in the real-time applications this port number will not be accessible from the public. So you cannot directly hit the actual port number. So you have to hit only the API gateway port number. Is it understandable? So this is one scenario. And from the front end point of view, how we can able to hit? As I told you, from the front end application, it always that you should hit only the 8083. Okay, you don't need to hit 8080 or 8081. You have to know only 8083. That's it. You don't need to worry about this all these things. For example, just consider maybe after 1 month I want to create 2 more port number for the same application. What I can do, I can just mention where this application is running. I'm just mentioning service 3 and I'm mentioning service, any URL contains service 3, and I have to mention 2 and 4 4. Okay, so this is array based configuration. So I'm telling like if any URL contains service 3, then pointing to the service 3 which is running on the port number 8082, just a spelling mistake, and here you can say 8083. Okay, so just for an example I'm telling. Okay, so here you can just mention service 3 like this. You can just mention this configuration, that's it. You don't need to do anything. But however, in the client side it's only 8083. Client does not know how many services are running internally. Client knows only one this URL, that's it. Your API gateway should not contain any business logic. Maybe we can have our authorization, that's it. Apart from this, your API gateway will not keep anything. Maybe some token authentication, only that purposes we can able to do it. But otherwise, we should not keep any business logic like connecting to the database and all these things we should not contain. And let me remove this scenario. Okay, that's it. This is my API gateway configuration. Here we are just adding the routing, that's it. Whenever the request comes, we are just forwarding the request to the another server according to the URL configuration. Okay, so now let me run my API gateway, and again this API gateway is also one of the client side application, that's it. Okay, so let me run the application, and my application is running. Okay, so as you can see here, my application is running fine. Now go to the server. First we need to check how many applications are running. Okay, so go to the dashboard. Where is that guy? Yeah, Eureka dashboard. Let me close everything. Okay, so Eureka server, this one, let me refresh it. Yeah, now you can see 3 applications are running, 2 services, 1 gateway. Okay, so this gateway is the major one which connects from the, which gets all the requests and forwarding to the this one. Is it understandable, right? One second, guys. Okay, so now what happens is like this gateway will get all the requests. Okay, from this one it goes to this application as well as this application. Okay, so actually the business logic is written in the service only, these 2 applications. But whenever the request comes, it received in the gateway. From the gateway it goes to the this place, actually here, this place as well as this place. This is the reason this gateway is needed. And one more thing, whenever we are using a gateway, UI people don't need to worry, because we are only one URL. Okay, this is a application which is connected to the gateway, which is connected from the UI to the gateway. Now if any request comes, it goes to this place only. Okay, understand, right? So now let's hit the URL from our browser. So what I can do, okay, go to browser, and I need to check whether any URLs are available or not. Okay, let me check the any endpoint, because it's a very long okay, I'm opening the client 2 and I want to check the URLs. Controller, all these things, so I don't want to explain. So yes, okay, yeah, I think this is very simple API, as you can see here. Sample API. Okay, so now how to hit this API? Generally in our Spring Boot application, what we will do, we can provide localhost 8081 slash service 2 slash sample API, correct? So localhost colon 8083 slash service true slash sample API. Okay, so this will give you the response. But when it comes to the this microservices, as you can see here, I need to always hit the gateway application, which is port number 8083. Even though my service 2 is running on the 8081, still I need to hit the 8083. And one more scenario, I need to give this service to, it's very important because this is the one service to which helps to API gateway pointing to the request to the service to. So I need to mention the service to here, and I mention sample API, which is pointing to this one actually here. Okay, now let me copy this URL. Let me check whether it is working fine or not. Make sure that every application is running. So that is the reason we are having a dashboard. You can see my all the applications are running fine. Go to this place and enter. Yes, you can see the proper response, which is coming from my application, sample response from client 2. So maybe I will change now to 15 February 2025. I'm just changing, and let me restart the application because in order to see the output, I need to restart my application. So now if you go to the dashboard, yeah, you can see the different output is coming actually. So whatever the change that I have made in my, sorry, I made it in my client 2 application, I can see the appropriate response. Again, we need to give the proper JSON response and all, but we don't have time, so we are just testing with that actually here. Okay, so that's it. So this is how our application is working. But main thing is, you can see I'm giving the URL as only localhost 8083. So let me give. I will give you an example. As you can see here, we are having a two service application. We can say service 1 as well as service 2. Okay, service 2 is running on 8081. Our service 1 is running on 8080, and our API gateway is running on 8083. Okay, and our server is running on 8761. So in our case, we have to be give only 8083 as the request. So which means I need to give localhost colon 8083, okay, slash service 1, which is pointing to the this application. Okay, so I will mention like 8080, it will go. If I mention localhost 8083, it's no need to change anything. If I mention service true, it will pointing to the 8081. So you can see here, this this portion will not be changed. Okay, so only this will be changeable. That is also taken care by the internally, that you don't need to worry about actually here, which means internally in the API gateway where they need to mention these things actually here. Now let's go for the service one. I show you example of this one, right, which you have seen, in the output. Now what I am going to do, localhost 8083, I am going to hit the service one to get the response from the 8080. So let me check the URL because we need to find the URL. Oh my god. Okay, so this is my another application, which is service 1. I think previously we hit the service 2 actually here. Okay, so now what I need to do, I need to find the URL. So which URL I can hit? I will get this URL. So sample get test. I think what this URL is doing is it tries to connect to the other API and gets the data. Okay, this is like an internal communication, but however this is connected to another API. That's fine. So how to find the URL? The URL for this one is it is running on the 8080, yeah, 8080. But however, I need to use this one. Okay. So localhost 8083 service one, this one. So then what will happen? This request will go to this application to get the response. Now go to the Chrome. Let me paste the URL. Enter. Yes, you can see this is a response of that API. As you can see here, I am hitting only API gateway, but I am getting the response from the service one application, and that application is gets from the different API. Okay, that's different story. So this is how your microservices application will work. So we need all this architecture. It looks like okay, multiple application. It's not about just multiple application. So here what are we doing is we are just internally set up the application, and each application will pointing to the appropriate port number, and that port number is configured in the API gateway. So whenever we are giving the request, that request will be forwarded to the appropriate application by giving the mapping that which we did it in the API gateway. And to see all the applications are working fine, what are all the status of the application, any error happens, any application shutdown or something, that can be achieved by through the server application, which is microservice server. That is also I told you, which is Eureka server. This Eureka server is responsible for to handle the microservices. Okay. Yes. So this is how we need to set up the our set up the application actually here. That's it. Okay. So any doubts? Again, the example which I am giving here is only just an very sample thing, but however we need to connect to the database. If you know the Spring Boot application, the way how we are connecting to the database, it is also the same way. There is no much difference. Only thing is how are we going to set up these configurations in order to work without any issues or something. Whether API gateway code written in Spring Boot or another one? Yes, this is a good question. So one person is asking, is there any possible to write a API gateway in some other application? I worked in one application 2 years back. There they have their own API gateway, which is they are using some third-party API gateway, so which is connected to my Spring Boot application. Yes, I think this is I thought of telling, but one guy asked. So there is a third-party API gateway is also available. So that is you don't need to do any codings. They have setup itself. You just need to install the setup in your system, in your server. They have given all the UI. Just you need to enter the URL, port number. That's it. You don't need to create any application. So how to stop directly accessing service on service 2? Okay, that can be done in the server level, which means either networking team or DevOps team can be done. So generally this port number whatever we are mentioning, right, 8081 or something, that cannot be accessible from the public as far as I know. In case if you know properly configure, generally these applications cannot be accessible because these are all internally running, right? So in the real-time applications, they only the particular domain name along with the port number will be publicly accessible. Otherwise generally it cannot be accessible, but still DevOps team, networking team will have the necessary configuration to avoid this type of attacks from the public accessible. Any other questions anyone wants to regarding this scenario? Okay, fine. The two things that I have shown you, which is Eureka server as well as the another one, which is the API gateway. All these things, lot of third-party applications also available. Okay, it's no need to be only the Spring Boot application will hold everything. That is not the case. It can be achieved in different things also. Because last year I worked with an application. What they are doing is they are not keeping all these things. They are the way how we are creating a normal Spring Boot application, right? In the normal Spring Boot application, they are keeping one application as a API gateway, another applications as a client application. Okay, so that is also one more concept. They don't need all these things. They are having their own tools, so they are having a multiple Spring Boot application. Normally, how we are creating the monolithic architecture, right? The way which I shown you previously. In that only they have application. They don't have any Eureka server or anything. So this is how they are having all the applications. They have around 50 to 60 applications. Okay, so all these applications will be running on the same architecture only. Fine, but internally they are having different tools which manages this application. In terms of the development, you don't need to install Eureka server or Eureka client. I think generally they are not using Eureka client. That's it. Okay, so I think one person is asking like real-time example. So I think 3 years back I was working. That is my first application which I worked with microservices. Um, that is some insurance-based company. I don't want to tell the name. So they are having a the term insurance, all the insurance, different of insurance they are having. So to maintain the insurance name, they are having one microservices. Okay, to maintain the insurance details alone, it's not for Indian project, it's a different country project. Only for maintaining the insurance, they are keeping one server, one microservices. And to manage the user data, they are keeping another microservices. And to find that, they, what is that, they used to mention insurance. So whenever the insurance is completed, right, to run the schedulers, to find the date of birth of the users, to send the birthday notification, or any death term plan, or anything they want to uh, send the assurance amount. I couldn't find that the insurance words. So some of the things, for everything they have a different servers actually here. And for each layer they have different own database, because as I told you, this application is very huge and it is a very biggest country. I don't want to tell the name, but it is not our country. So to maintain the user database, they are keeping one database. To maintain the term plan, insurance plan, they are having one database. And to maintain the insurance amount, how many days they are paying, what is the future return, something, all these things they are having a different database. To communicate with each other, they are having a Kafka, and also they are having one more module also to communicate with each other. So this is how they have used actually here. So this is the one application, and other two more applications also there, but again, I don't know what to explain. Is any other questions, guys, from anybody? You can use chat.
Praveen, sorry to interrupt you in between. Actually, after 10-15 minutes, we'll move to Q&A part. So I just
Okay.
want to tell people that if you have any query, kindly write it down in a Q&A tab. Soon we will start that.
Okay. So now shall I go to the next one actually?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, yes, fine. I think we can go ahead. If anyone wants to ask, maybe you can use the chat. Fine. So this is the basics of our Spring Boot application. As I told you, this is not the only architecture. So it depends. This is the base architecture. Based on this, every organization, they have implemented their own way of implementation, but the architecture is same. We will have a separate application which runs the separate module. But whether are we going to use Eureka server or Eureka client or any other thing, it depends actually here. Okay, fine. So let's see about that Kubernetes as well as Docker. So this Docker and Kubernetes is specifically for to reduce the deployment timing. So now consider that whenever you want to deploy your application, you need to build the application, deploy it in multiple servers. But when we are using this Kubernetes image, or sorry, Docker image, that can be deployed in other places without any issues actually. Just single command, you can just create a server, and inside the server you can able to deploy it. So let's see how to create a Docker image for Spring Boot application, and how this Docker image can be deployed in a Kubernetes actually here. Okay, initial stage, without Kubernetes also we can run the Docker, but however, in order to create the pods, which means multiple things, we need a Kubernetes actually here. Okay, so let's see how to create a configuration step by step. So first we need to create an image for our application. So image instance, Docker image. So we need to tell how to create a Docker image to the Docker, because Docker does not know whether you are using a Node application or Java application or whatever it may be. So we need to tell to the Docker what are the dependencies needed for this application, and accordingly the Docker will generate the image actually here. Okay, so let's see what is the configuration. So now the Docker configuration. Okay, as of now I will shut down all the applications, guys, because this is one second, let me terminate the applications. Okay. Fine. So now, so whenever you want to create any Docker image for your application, we have to create a configuration. Okay. So without configuration, as I told you, our application will not, our Docker cannot able to proceed further. Okay. Fine. So now go to the Docker file. So this is the Docker file that you need to create in root of your project. Okay. So root of the project means where you are keeping the files. In that file, you need to mention the Docker actually here. So I created this. Let me open the file in the hard disk. Okay. So you can see my application. So this is my application where we are having our Spring Boot code. So along with that, I am creating a manually. I created a file called a Docker file. Okay. It's very important that you should keep the same file name. Otherwise, you cannot able to see it. You can see this one, right, which is Docker file. The name should be something like this. In case if you are keeping some other file, maybe some other name, or maybe without the capital D, if you are using a small d, of course you will have an error. So it is important that we should keep the same name, which is Docker file. Okay, only the D is capital, other things are small only. Okay, is it understandable, right? Okay. Now coming to this, open the file in a Spring Boot application, and as I told you, this file should be exist inside this directory. If you are creating some other directory, that is also fine, but you should create the path. So better keep this file in the same directory of your project itself. Okay. As we are working with the Node.js, I'm just telling, I'm working with the Java. I am telling from OpenJDK 17 actually. So I am telling I need the JDK version number 17. This is the first dependency that I'm expecting to create the image. Is it understandable? So from OpenJDK 17. In case if your code expects version number 23, then you have to mention the 23 actually here. Okay. So in terms of the project creation, it's the same thing only. There is no much change. The way how you are creating the Spring Boot application, right? Okay, one person is asking the same thing only. The way how you are creating the application, the same application only. There is no any change. The same application. Only thing is I am creating the Docker file. That's it. That is also manually I am created. I told you how to create a Docker file. Okay. So guys, it's the same thing only. The same application. I am using a Docker file. Okay. No need to have any special dependency or something. Now the first step is for the Docker, any of the Spring Boot application, we have to add just dependency, which is from OpenJDK 17 actually here. Okay, I'm mentioning I'm expecting the JDK version number 17 for this Docker image. Okay, next I am telling in the target folder of Spring Boot application, this would be created only whenever we are running the application. I want to copy this jar file and create the app.jar file. I will tell you one more time. So whenever we are running the Spring Boot application, automatically there will be one folder called target. You can see the target, right? So I am telling inside the target folder, find the file called this one. This will be different for every jar file. If you expand it in my application, you can see this is a jar file. Excuse me. So this jar file will be different for every application, whatever the name that you are giving for your application. I am mentioning my application is web app, so it creates in this file name. So I am telling to create a app.jar file from this file to my Docker. This is the second step of this file. Then I am telling expose the port number 8080 in the Docker, because if you are not telling, your Docker will not open the port number, so naturally you cannot able to see the output. So I am telling to the Docker that it has to open the port number 8080, and I am telling this is the entry point where I need to run my application. That's it. So this is how our Docker will run my application. If any space, if any extra space, or if any spelling mistake, then of course you cannot able to create the Docker. So here each and every character is very, very important, even though the empty space is also very, very important. If anything is missing, of course you cannot able to see anything actually here. So it's very important that you should create the appropriate text in your application actually here. Okay, so I hope you guys understood. And one more thing, whatever the configuration that I have created, there is a different variations also available. So this is just a very simplistic way of creating the Docker image by using these points. You can add work directory, you can add a different port number, you can add a dynamic name for your jar file, and you can give some other different commands also available. But this is the very basics of how to create a JDK for your image to create the Docker actually by using the Docker. Okay, so as I told you, you have to give proper name. In case if anything is missing, your Docker will throw the error. Okay, so even though the space also very important. Okay, so once you created, no need to add any dependency. You need to install the Docker. I hope you guys know the Docker setup. If you don't know the Docker setup, you can just go to the Google. You can just mention Docker setup. Okay, so go to the get started, and you can see Docker desktop. So whatever the system that you are using, accordingly you can just install the Docker actually. Okay, so I'm using Apple Silicon, so I need to install. I already installed this Docker. So once you have done this one, once you download the Docker in your system, it is, I think it may take 400 MB or 500 MB. So once you install, you have to open the Docker here. Okay, so as you can see here, these are all the images which is already added to my Docker. Okay, but initially if you are installing this Docker, it will ask you to set up the account. So you can use your Google account in order to set up this one. Otherwise you can just use your email manually and enter create the account actually. It's all your wish how you want to create the account in the Docker. Okay, so I created account already, so using my email, and so that I can able to see this one. So once you can able to create the account, you can see this page, otherwise it will not available. And one more thing, you can go to the Docker Hub also. There is a official page. So this Docker Hub only you can able to, I think, even though by clicking the create account, it will go to this page only, automatically it opens in the browser. So in this, okay, so in this place also you can see my Docker is set up. I created my account, which is free, no need to worry about it. They will not ask anything. So you can just use your normal email to create the account in the Docker actually here. Excuse me, thank you. Fine. So I created account and everything is there. Now to check whether the installation is working properly or not, you can just go to your terminal, type Docker anywhere, just type Docker, enter. You can see this type of output. In case if you are getting this Docker is not available, undefined, unknown command, that means then your installation is not working properly. So it's very important that, okay, it's very important that your Docker should be installed in your system, otherwise this Docker image will not be created. Okay, fine. So now I need to create an image actually, correct? So as wherever we are having the Docker file, we have to go into the directory. You cannot just build the image wherever you want. So we need to go into that directory where we are keeping the Docker file. Okay, so wherever we are keeping the Docker file, there only we can able to build the Docker image. Okay, so now I need to check ls. You know what is ls actually here. So if I put ls, you can see my Docker file is showing here. If I see the Docker file, in that place only I can able to execute my Docker image. In case if the Docker file is not exist, of course we cannot able to build the image. So now I need to do Docker file, sorry, Docker file build build -t, I think so. Once again, so Docker file, sorry guys, Docker, sorry, I just give a thing. Okay, I need to give the command called Docker space build and -t, and I need to mention the application name. Okay, what is the application that you want to create? I will mention like SPMS. Okay, Spring Boot Microservices. I want to, this is my application name. It's all your wish how you want to create actually here. Okay, I'm just mentioning SPMS. So now I need to mention my account name. My account name is Sri Praveen 1003. This is my account name actually. This account name you have to provide during the registration. So you can go into the Docker website. You can see this is the account name actually here. Username of the Docker. So that I am mentioning here in my terminal. Again, you can use this internal terminal or you can use command prompt. But one thing is, your this terminal or any other terminal, it should pointing to the appropriate folder. That's it. Okay. So this one, next one is, I need to mention the tag. You can mention the alphanumeric, but I am giving 1.0 and I'm giving dot, which is current directory. This is how you need to create a Docker image for your application. Docker build -t, application name, your account number, sorry, account name and tag name and current directory. Enter. Wait, once again. Did I give any space? One second, guys.
Sorry to interrupt, Sri Praveen. Actually, I would like to request everyone, please guys, do write your question in Q&A tab. Soon we will start that.
Yep. So we need to type the Docker. Yeah, this is working fine. Okay, I think that's a spelling mistake somewhere.
Praveen, do let me know when we can start our Q&A session.
Yeah, okay. Just 2 minutes. Let me
Yeah,
come.
please take your time.
Yeah. So minus T. Yeah, there's a spelling mistake actually here. I think, yeah. So I need to give Docker build -t as well as, oh, okay. I gave the wrong name actually here. Right. Okay, yeah. So I need to give like this actually. Let me show you one more time. I think I did a mistake. Okay, so Docker build -t, then I need to give my application that I want to create actually here. So 1.0 and current directory. So if I mention this one, immediately you can see my application is created. So once this image is created, you can see that Docker will load the images in its desktop. So go into this one, you can see my, let me refresh it here. So you can see my images is created now. Let's check. So let me run the image. You can see whenever I'm running, it is downloaded, and as you can see here, it's created now actually here. Okay, so the same name it's created, so it's showing. Maybe let me create with another name also. So Sri Praveen 15 Feb, enter it. You can see my application is running one more time, and you can see another application is also created with the same name. I don't know why the time is not showing actually here. Fine. So now my application is running actually. Sorry, the image is created. So this is the image. We can use it, deploy it wherever we want. Okay. So now, in order to run this application, in case if you want to see locally, can you see there is a small icon, right? So the play icon, so the run icon, you can just go into here. And if you want to share any port number or something, I need only 8080 as of now. And if you want to share any environmental variable and all these things, you can keep it. Otherwise, click on run. You can see your application will run immediately. This is run from Docker, not from your Spring Boot application. Yes, you can see here the logs, which is the Spring Boot application logs, which our application runs properly actually here. Okay, so if you want to see the output, you can just go into the browser. You can just mention localhost 8080 executes. You can see this output. Okay, of course I didn't give any URL, so you can see this output is coming from the Docker actually here. In case if I shut down my Docker, this means I'm shut down my Docker. You can see if I refresh this application, you can see the output, which means as I have shut down the Docker, our application is not running, so it is I cannot see the output properly actually here. Okay, so fine. Now the next thing is we need to go for Kubernetes, but we don't have time, so I will just tell you what is the steps that we need to do in order to find the Kubernetes, because hereafter the steps is only 4 commands, by the way. So what you need to do, you need to create the Kubernetes. Let me tell you the commands actually here. Okay, one more thing, you need to install the kubectl. So this generally this Kubernetes will be installed only in the server, but in order to learn this basics, they are giving some command line tool which is running the local. So this is called a minikube. Okay, minikube means this is for just local to check in our applications. So you need to check for minikube install. Okay, this also you need to install in order to set up. So this will be available for Mac, Windows, Apple, all these things. Yeah, you can see Linux means you have to go with this scenario. Mac means like this, Windows is also you have a like this. I don't know what is this. Is it installation? No, sorry guys. Yeah, okay. So if you go for Linux, you need to go for this one. If you are Windows, you will have a, I think they are also having something actually here. Okay, so I don't know much about Windows, but Linux and if you are using Mac OS, you can use just a homebrew. So immediately it will be installed. Just one command line, it will be installed. Oh, they have package manager. Yeah, using the package manager, you can install for the Windows. I think they are using something new, and this is also working fine actually here. Okay, you can use it. So once you have installed this minikube, you can go to the terminal. You can type kubectl kubectl. You can see this output. This will be work only after the minikube. In case if you are not having this, you are not getting the proper output, of course you will get an error like Kubernetes are not found or something. Okay, so first you need to create the Kubernetes, something like this. Now once this step is completed, you have to move your image to this kettle. Okay, so you can run this kubectl anywhere. Okay, no need to be in the particular location or something. So here this is the command which will help you to deploy your thing. Here you need to mention the image name. One second guys. Yeah, excuse me, sorry. Okay, so this command line will help you to build the image. So once you build the image, which means run the image on the kubectl, so you don't need to worry, automatically Kubernetes will get the image from the Docker. So it can be run from anywhere in your system. So automatically you can able to see the output actually here. So then you can see this commands will help you to find the parts and find the deployments and all these things actually. Here this is called your application name, which we have here you need to mention the application name which we have created by using the image actually here. That's it guys, this is how you need to do, but as of now we don't have time for showing the Kubernetes because it takes some time. So I think we can wind up, we can go for Q&A. Yeah, Preeti, are you there?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
before starting our Q&A, I just want to tell everyone that please do fill out our session feedback, which I have launched. Till then, we have few questions, Sri Praveen. So first one is, what qualification or skills are required to become a microservice architect?
okay, first of all we should know the basic I don't know whether the question comes from the developer or beginner, so but however we should know about the basic HTTP request and all these things. This is the basics. Next one is how the applications are interacting, like one application to the another. That is very important because whatever we are seeing is just very basics but we should know how the applications are interaction, like ActiveMQ, Kafka. These are the things that we should know. And apart from this, database also, how these things can be used appropriately in the database, and circuit breaker, and handling the error. All these things very important actually here. And API gateway. These are the things in terms of to become an architect, we should know all these things.
Okay. So Shri Bhavna is asking, for each client application, you will create a Docker image separately?
Yes, of course, we have to create actually.
And Shuyas is asking, is Java and Java framework like Spring Boot used for development in the AI/ML area?
As of now, Java is not, as far as I know, it's not much popular in terms of that AI development. I think now only they created some libraries, but Python is the popular framework for in terms of the AI as well as ML. Java is not that much popular, specifically the Spring Boot also. But as of now, they are just developing a small applications. That's it.
Yeah. Ishwar is asking in chat box, which terminal it is, Docker desktop or Kuber? Yeah,
Mm. Uh,
kubectl.
okay, you're asking which desktop or which terminal?
Terminal.
You can use normal terminal itself. There is no different in terms of local. We can use Windows, means we can use command prompt, and Mac means we can use normal terminal. Linux is also we can use normal terminal. So any, not any much separate actually here.
Okay, you can, Shri Praveen, if possible, you can stop sharing your screen.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
And Anand is asking, is this example available on GitHub?
Yeah, we can. It's available. I can, if you want, I can show this.
Okay, so next question is, how is 5G influencing microservice architectures in real-time application?
How is?
How is 5G influencing microservice architecture in real-time application?
That I don't. What is the meaning of 5G actually? That I don't know.
I-
Yeah, I think somewhere I heard, but I didn't know actually. Yeah, that's fine.
So let's move to another question. No worries. How important is knowledge of Kubernetes in for a Java developer in 2025?
Okay, it's not about just Java developer, because microservices are using everywhere in the development in terms of server side development. So everyone should know about this architecture actually here. It's very important.
Okay, so Ankit is asking, what kind of question for 7.5 years experience on Kubernetes and Docker?
um, it's very, lengthy answer, so I cannot say this is the one question that you can able to get it from the everyone. So generally they will ask what is the configuration and what is the use of this Docker and this Kubernetes, all these things. That's it. This is the basic question, but still there's a lot of questions you may expect.
Okay, and Vivek is writing, what would be the best way to manage Spring Boot microservice learning?
uh, is it like how you can able to learn this microservices? Is it the question
Yes,
properly?
maybe, yes.
Yeah, of course, you need to create a lot of applications and with different concepts also. For example, you can just take it on Amazon or Flipkart. You can develop the same e-commerce applications, how you can able to create and all these things like this. And for example, you can create a login module, application module, product module, checkout module. If you are working with a banking application, user banking, you can create one application, corporate banking, manager, and like this, you can create a number of applications.
Okay, so next question is, are there any recommended certifications for microservices, Spring Boot, and Kubernetes?
I don't know, but we need to check with the Spring Boot documentation, because they may provide, but I don't think so. There is any proper certifications officially.
Okay. Next question is, what are the best practice for configuring Kubernetes for high availability?
Um, in terms of configuration for Kubernetes, you are asking, right? For high availability, of
Yes.
course, our server should have proper memory, and also we have to keep our applications without any issues, which can I think, yeah, this is the thing actually here. So we have to deploy the configurations, and our server should be able to, physical server should be able to handle these things actually here.
Yeah, and similar question to this only. Best practice for hybrid cloud deployment using Kubernetes.
um, Best practices in terms of hybrid cloud, again, this is the advantage of by using the Kubernetes. You don't need to worry about how it works in the different server, because Kubernetes and Docker will take care of these things. You need to just move the tell the location where it has to deploy it. That's it. So you need to set up that appropriate dependencies for to run the Kubernetes. So you don't need to worry about how these things are working actually here.
Okay,
That will be
so
taken care of.
last question is, how important is knowledge of Kubernetes for a Java developer in 2025?
I think this question you asked already.
I asked.
But however, I will tell you the answer. But that's what, this is not only for Java developer.
Okay.
For Node.js also we are using Docker. For Python also we are using Docker. Even you can just now before while sharing the screen, in the Docker website itself they are telling LLM is developed by the LLM packages can be run by using Docker. So everywhere it's using. Of course, Java applications also can be deployed by using Docker. So this can be not just for Java, for all the server-side applications. Even for AI and ML also, they are predominantly using Docker.
Okay. Vivek is writing for you. Zero knowledge in Java and Spring Boot, but still want to learn how to manage microservices created in Spring Boot framework.
Don't have any knowledge of Spring Boot Java, but still he wants to create Spring Boot means
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell the answer. It is like without addition subtraction, you want to learn Pythagoras theorem actually.
So before moving to like microservice and Spring Boot, you have to learn Java.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's waste of time only.
So Vivek, please learn Java firstly. You have to
Yeah.
learn that. Okay, so we are done with our Q&A session as well. So do you have anything which you want to convey to our audience?
Um, yeah, guys, that's so actually it's very important that you should be good at Java actually here, because most of the people are directly jump into the Spring Boot application and they started working actually here. But the base things, once we are moreover whatever you are learning these things, correct, if you are a beginner, these things can be done by your seniors itself. Your seniors will done everything, so you don't need to worry about. But however, you should have a knowledge. I'm not telling you should not have a knowledge. So the main part is you should be good at core Java as well as Spring Boot, the core concepts. So you should know how to Java 8 concepts, that Lambda expression, filter, map, collections, thread concepts, how the email you can able to send, how to set up the Spring Boot application, and how to the layer, MVC layer, all these things. It's very important that you should have knowledge. So these are all the fine, but you should have a core concepts, how much you are strong, then only you can able to go for further things actually here. This is my thing, and that's it.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much, Praveen, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. We truly
Yes,
appreciate your time and the effort also which you have put into the session. And
yes,
of
yes, yes.
course, big thank you for all of you who have joined us today. Yeah. And if you have any question or want to learn more, please feel free to reach out to us or connect with Shri Praveen directly. And here is the best part, the session recording will be available on our Shine.com's YouTube channel and LinkedIn account. So you can revisit it anytime. We can't wait to see you in a future session. Until then, take care, keep learning, and have an amazing day. Thank you, Shri Praveen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Shine, for giving this opportunity, as well as Hindustan Times. Thank you.